Okay, good. All right. Well, so here we are. So I'm Mimi Long. I'm from Alliant Insurance Services. So let's go to the next page, and then I'll kind of explain who I am and why you're seeing me on the screen. Okay. Do you all want to do your introductions too? I don't know how you want to do this.
I included introductions as we're a part of the presentation. I'll start with Jake Friesen.
Go ahead, you can do it. You can do it, Rosa.
UGCAN manager. You want to give a little bit of, Mimi, just orientation of your responsibilities with the UGCAN.
Correct. As the UGCAN manager, I am the one who works, if there are any claims, I'm the one who puts the claims in through Rosa to Alliant, whether that's for common areas or whether that is specifically with the townhome owners that have issues, that it comes through our office. And so I'm the point of contact, initial point of contact to Alliant, who is the insurance carrier for the site authority and CSUCI.
And I'm Rosa Bravo, I'm Director of Operations, overseeing the operations mainly, and I'm the direct communication with Alliant Services and communication with it between the UGCAN. And then we also have Lori Nichols, who isn't present, but she's the Assistant Vice President of Business Administration. She's a liaison between Site Authority Board and approving most of the operational budgets and payments similar to the reserves. And then we have Mimi Long.
Yes, hello, I'm back. So I'm Mimi Long, and I work with Alliant Insurance Services, and we provide the brokerage services for the CSU University, all of the campuses, as well as all of the CSU auxiliary organizations. And there's a couple different site authorities within the CSU system. So we do all the insurance brokerage. So that is who I am.
Thank you, Mimi. There's a relationship between our entities, and I believe you kind of touched on that. There's the Alliant Insurance Services, along with the CSIRMA, which is the California State University Risk Management Authority. Did you want to add anything to this slide here?
Yeah, so I will just say that we've been working with the California State University system since the mid 90s. And so this is a sort of this site authority is a little bit interesting for us too. It's a little bit different in that it's combined with the California State University system trustees are on the board, and also the County of Ventura. Since it's sort of a joint venture between those two partners, we also get involved as the broker, which is a little bit different for us, but that's our involvement.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And we touch on the governing document for the University Glen. As most of the homeowners understand, the ground sublease, it was executed in 2004 to facilitate the construction and development of housing for staff and faculty. Within that housing development, it's opened up a little bit broader to other categories per the ground sublease. But the ground sublease is the executive document where it has sections, and you reference the insurance and the maintenance. And we have sections 8, which is covering our insurance, and then sections 10 for maintenance.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that only because if there is a loss, so the insurance companies will always go back to this ground lease to see who's responsible for what part of the loss. So I just wanted to point that out. If there's ever confusion, that's the document that everyone goes to and looks at. So, and I put some information on some of the other slides too that we can look at. Okay. Oh, and this one, I was just kind of going backwards a little bit because I sort of talked about this already. But it's interesting in that, and I'm sure you all know this, but it's interesting for me in that the land is owned by the university, but it's leased to the site authority, and then it's subleased to all the homeowners. I guess it's a 100-year lease, it looks like.
Correct.
So that's interesting. And so that's all. I just put some little background in there.
Great, appreciate it. Yeah, we do understand that there's a lot of components. Actually, we figured out that the Board of Trustees are the owners of the land, and it's subleased to the site authority to lease it out to the current residents of University Glen.
Yeah, okay. So let's go. I think I put more on the.
Just more of a summary. And here we go.
Yeah, okay. So then what I did here, again, this is just summary. This is all that's information that's already in the ground lease, but basically just talks about what each kind of entity needs to have. So the attached homes, basically you have your HO6, which is generally it's a package policy which covers the property, and it also covers your liability. And what it's always going to go back to, it's not going to specifically list every single thing that is listed in your sublease. It's always going to go back to that that executive document. So that's how it's going to figure out what it's going to cover. So it always refers back to that. And then on the detached homes, of course, that's just a standard property policy, but the site authority is not covering that part. And then, of course, I listed what the site authority purchases, and we'll look at those in a little bit more detail.
So
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And we have the property insurance that's under the site authority, as you are the brokerage to the site authority. It covers the attached homes along with the liability of the site authority.
Yeah, and when I was looking, a lot of questions came in about what would be covered. So it's all going to go back to just reading through these sections of the maintenance and the insurance. It's basically walls in is covered, should be covered by the homeowner, and anything on the outside is covered by the site authority. So, and it's only to the inside surface of the wall. So if you have to repaint your wall because it got wet, I saw the fire hose question. So if the wall is wet and needs to be repainted, well, then that would be the homeowner's insurance. So, and there was a question there about coverage for the slab. You see how the site authority is required to cover that, but I will tell you that foundations are not covered under a property policy. So in that case, what would happen is the site authority would have to, fix the concrete slab.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would probably be an assessment. I'm assuming that's how you would take care of it, because insurance doesn't cover foundations.
Yes, correct. And generally for a slab leak, we are rerouting the piping, and there's a different process that we're doing with the attached homes. So the slab isn't, jackhammered, and so that's kind of, if it's a major slab leak, this is the process, and Jake is very familiar with that process.
And part of that is because the slabs are post-tension slabs, and so you would have a whole bunch of a can of worms as far as having to x-ray the slab before you would jackhammer it, and multiple things. And so to reroute it in the wall, to tap it off, close it off from what is leaking coming up into the wall is usually what we do, and then we reroute it another way in the walls itself, and then repair the walls.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead, because I was going to say, while I'm on this section, I can answer some of these questions if you'd like. I'm just, I'm kind of going through them right now. Okay, so I already answered the one about the slab, and we talked about the pipe break in the slab. Okay, so then this was an interesting question. If a fire breaks out in one townhome and does damage to the neighbors, so basically what we're going to look at then is whatever damage you have, if it's outside of your unit, inside of your unit, it's whatever. If it's inside, it's going to be your policy. If it's outside, it'll be the site authority. I mean, it's pretty, actually, the lease, the ground lease is pretty easy to follow. Some of them that I've seen are not. So I feel like that one's kind of easy. And then I liked this question about an object flying through a window. I was thinking about a golf ball. So again, same sort of thing. According to the ground lease, windows are covered by the site authority, so that would be great. But again, it hits your wall and knocks a hole in the wall, then that would be the homeowner's policy. There was a question about acts of God. We don't have an act of God exclusion in the site authority policy. Mm-hmm. So I can't really answer that one, but I guess my answer is no, we don't have one. Let's see. Now, this was an interesting question. So it was, let's say there's a fire and half of the building's destroyed, the other half's totally fine, like you could get into your unit, but you're not going to be, just because it's red tagged or for safety reasons, you can't occupy your unit. So generally, your homeowner's insurance will give you living costs for living expenses. It could be up to a year. Depends on there's not a standardized form, but generally, well, let's say a year. But that's only if it's a loss covered under your homeowner's policy. So this type of loss would really need to be covered under the site authority's policy. Now, I am getting that checked. I'm double checking on that, because the policy we have here, it's a big, huge commercial property policy. It wasn't written to cover condos, although it does cover them. We just don't have specific wording in there on additional living expenses. So I am checking on that. Okay. So where's the clear line between the group policy and the homeowner's policy? It's all the surface of the wall in is the homeowner's policy. Anything outside is the group policy. Okay, and then I answered the object flying through the window. Okay, this one's kind of similar. I already answered this one about the wildfire takes out several townhomes. Mm-hmm. Okay, oh, and there was a question about the CAM fees, which I wasn't sure what that was. That must be your own fees.
Those are the maintenance rent fees for the common area.
Right.
Yes. What was the question?
So this one is a wildfire takes out several townhomes, not the fault of the homeowner, and destruction causes the red tag non-livable structure. Rebuilding takes many months. Who pays for the temporary living expenses for the residents and the CAM fees, and which policy covers it, group or homeowners? So the question the answer to that is if there is damage to the interior of your unit, then there is coverage for the living expenses. It should be under your own homeowner's policy. Now, if there is no loss to the interior of your unit, which is the unit that's being covered, that's where I have to check to see it should be covered under the group policy. But again, there's not specific wording in our policy, so we are checking. We actually have a call into the underwriter now.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay. I skipped over this one too. So I said the fire department sprays water on a burning townhome structure, causing water damage to the non-burning adjacent homes. Who pays for the drywall removal and installation? Okay. So again, same sort of thing. If the water damages the drywall, well, that would be the site authority. That would be the group policy. If it only damages the interior, where it sprays on your carpet, your flooring, your wall surface, then that would be the homeowner's policy. Okay. So let's look at, I'm going to look at the next one. So this is for damage to the interior of a townhome from fire or smoke. Who is responsible for the drywall, outward pipes and electrical wires, studs, beams? Same thing. That would be the group policy. Okay.
Yeah, and there's various circumstances we're dealing with at this time, like more of a maintenance item. There's compartments that are responsibility of the site authority along with the homeowner's policy. So they're generally intermingled during a policy, a claim.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mimi.
Yes. And thank you. So, and that is absolutely 100% true. And I always like to say that when we're talking about scenarios, that there's never a perfect scenario where I can always give you a 100% answer that this is what will happen, because we don't know all the particulars. But generally speaking, when I'm talking, that's kind of what I'm saying. Generally speaking, this is who should be responsible.
Yes.
So,
we had one similar circumstance that it was a slab leak and the homeowner had their property insurance and it covered the slab leak, and their process allowed them to have a relocation, and so they move forward with their policy. So there's times that they're interchangeable policies. Again, there's a concern, am I getting too much policy? And I guess the suggestion would be that it's at the discretion of the homeowner, unless you have any advice in regards to questions regarding getting too much of a policy.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think there are some questions in the beginning that we were kind of talking about. So it says that it appears the current policy encompasses the entire area and buildings, the campus, the apartment, town center, townhomes, and freestanding homes as one large policy. So yeah, let me talk about that. So what we have here is this property program that you're a part of, it's an enormous property program, and it covers all of the California State University campuses, but it also covers cities, counties, school districts, hospitals, all throughout California and out of California. So it's enormous. Actually, it's such a big property placement that it's the largest placement in the London insurance marketplace. So it's huge.
Mhm.
So, but what we do is every individual insured is it's covered under the same policy form, but you're rated kind of separately. So I don't think it would be an advantage to take you out of this program. And the reason why is because you're really benefiting from this enormous placement. Your cost is just that much lower because it's so big. And also you do have a $5,000 deductible. And I think on maybe the policy summary that you've looked at, it is a little bit confusing because it shows all the campus structures, and then we call your placement Campus 99. It's a fictitious campus that we've made up, and the reason we do that is it's called Campus 99 if your deductible is lower than 100,000. That's all, and it's a way for underwriters to know that there's going to be a lower deductible. So I feel like this is a really good price, and the coverage you're getting is pretty expansive with that low deductible. So, I mean, you could review it and get an optional price, but okay. And then, so that's sort of the same. Would it be advantageous to break the policy up into their own policy campus? It really kind of is. So it is one huge master policy, but each insured does have their own separate quote and separate price and separate deductibles. So you're not all paying the same rate. So you're not disadvantaged because you're part of the campus. I think it's more of an advantage. Is it possible to lower the yearly premium fee and deductibles? Okay, deductibles, no, I can't imagine that your deductible could go any lower than 5,000. I think that's really low. Now, not to say you couldn't, but with our program, it couldn't go any lower. And same with the fee. I feel like what you're paying is a pretty low rate. Again, that would mean just marketing the program and and seeing if you could get something lower.
Right.
Okay, let's see. And then it says it looks like the current policy covers items that would be exclusively for the university. Right. So again, I think that's just because we showed everything on that one policy summary. But what we have on your property program policy, it's only covering the 200 units. That's all we list. So we don't list any.
Insurance. Yes, we have the property insurance.
Yeah, that's all we have on the policy. So, oh, and then this is a very good question. Okay, so then it says, does this policy cover all of the infrastructure as it stands now? Asphalt, streets, sidewalks, light poles, landscaping, sewer lines, underground electrical due to fire, floods, and earthquake. So good, that's a good question. And when we were working on the renewal on the liability program, I feel like we got it pretty much figured out that is not part of your responsibility as site authority. But again, I'll kind of defer to you. Now, if you are responsible for the streets, the sidewalks, there is coverage in the property policy. I think it's up to 500,000, but it depends on who owns it and who's responsible for it. I mean, you might have.
Yeah, we can circle back on that response. I know when the renewal, we did leave the streets, the parks, the common areas
Yep.
included, but we can circle back with the response.
Yeah, I feel like there was quite a bit of discussion on that, and we took it off, but yeah, we can talk about that one too. Okay, there's some more questions, but let's wait till we get to the
So the
next
next slide.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to move this down. Oh, okay. And then here I just listed what the policy is covering. Of course, this policy is it's really long. It's well over 100 pages long. So obviously I didn't put everything on here, but you can see your premium for the 200 units is the 43,000, which is pretty darn low. And then we've got the $5,000 deductible. So I put on here that your limit is replacement cost, and that's because the policy limit's actually $1 billion, but you're never going to need $1 billion. So it's really just covering the structure, and there is no coinsurance and there is no penalties. So it's whatever you need to replace it, that's what it's going to cover. And then I just listed a few of the
exclusions.
Major exclusions. And let's see. Oh, and I highlighted this section because like I was saying that it's only to cover what you're liable for, what your obligation is, of course, and that's going to go back to the ground lease.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so that's all I have there. And now let's get to earthquake. Okay, so this is a new policy. It will renew in July.
Okay.
So earthquake, of course, is very expensive. And I always like to point out a couple things here. So your limit's $10 million. The actual replacement cost of all 200 units is around 54 million, right? So you don't have a limit for the whole value, but that's because generally in an earthquake, all of the buildings are not going to completely collapse. And so it's rare that you're going to insure the entire limit just because the cost is so high. Mm-hmm. Now, if you'll note down here, I'm going to come back up to the top. I talked a little bit about how we came up with that limit. So what we do with earthquake is, again, because it's so expensive, you only want to insure like the loss that you really think you're going to have. So we've had earthquake insurance for quite a few years now, and we use this outside agency, and they model your earthquake risk. So they look at, it's basically their best guess based on historical information, but it's also based on your building specific information, like the structure, the soil type, the location, the year. There's a lot that goes into it. And they came up with their loss prediction was only 2 million. So what we looked at is we looked at quotes for 5 million and 10 million, and then the decision was to go ahead and purchase the 10 million. Yeah. So that's the total loss for the year. Now, let's look at this other coverage underneath, which is called ordinance and law coverage. Oh, and again, the earthquake coverage is only covering what the site authority is required to cover. It's not going to cover any of the homeowner's interior. So that all needs to be purchased on a separate policy. So the ordinance and law is an interesting coverage. So if let's say you have a loss to half of the building, let's say, so half of the building is undamaged and the other half is destroyed. So now all of a sudden, you have this undamaged portion of the building, and then state or local requirements require that you demolish the whole building. So the coverage pays for the entire building, even though only half of it was destroyed. And then it's also going to pay for those increased costs that you might have to upgrade, maybe because of the age of the building, now you have to upgrade your electrical or your plumbing, or you have to comply with new regulations. So that's what all that ordinance and law coverage is for. And all of the individual homeowners should have that on their policy as well. So now let's look at the deductible. So it's a 5% deductible. So that seems really low. You're like, oh, that's only 5%. Awesome. But actually what that means is it's 5% of what you're insuring, not your loss amount. So I just did an example here. I just said, if you have one of your clusters is 15 townhomes, because I think you have a 15 townhome cluster. And I just came up with the 3.7 million. It's probably might be a little bit lower than that. So your deductible would be 187,000. And that's not if the building is completely destroyed. That's just if there is damage to that building. It could be just 100,000 worth of damage to the building. That's still your deductible. So I would like to point that out, because the 5% doesn't, until you really understand what it's 5% of what. So that is how the earthquake works. Okay, so then I had some questions here regarding the earthquakes. Let me pull those up. Okay, so there's an earthquake causes structural damage and snaps wood beams, both on the exterior walls and some interior walls between rooms or second floor, along with drywall damage. Which policy covers it, group or home? So can I ask you, do you have 2-story townhomes? Okay. Yeah, so what would happen then if there's damage to an interior wall that's within your unit, that would be covered by the homeowner. The outside walls would be covered by the group policy. Same with the beams, same with the structure. So yes, although, hold on, I want to back up, because actually it said floor and ceiling, but you know what? But see, so, okay, this is sometimes where these ground leases get confusing, because looking at the ground lease where it says that the site authority is responsible for the ceilings and the floors and the walls, it's only the interior. So if you have an interior wall between floors, according to your ground lease, it would be the site authority. But I do find that odd. So, that's why sometimes these losses, they get difficult, because now we're going to start scrutinizing these legal documents to see what was the real intent. So that's my best guess on that one. Let me go. There was another earthquake one here. Let's see. Okay, cracked slab from an earthquake. Which policy covers it, group or homeowners? I will tell you that the earthquake policy will not cover it, because they don't cover foundations. And a concrete slab is a foundation. Okay, so let's look at another question. Okay, earthquake to a structure with multiple townhomes attached. The structure has 6 townhomes, 3 of them are unlivable and 3 are livable. On the side of safety, they red tag the entire structure until 3 damaged units are rebuilt, incurring relocation fees, monthly CAM fees, etc. Okay, so that's a good question, because your earthquake policy is only covering the real property. It's not covering your expenses of the additional living expenses. That's not covered on here. So that can be a problem, in that your earthquake policy that the homeowner purchases, it's only going to provide those living expenses if there's damage to the interior. So that could be an issue, and I will check with the earthquake underwriter to see if we can purchase business income and extra expense coverage, which may cover it. So that's a question that I will have to ask the underwriters to see if that's even available. Because that's a pretty big gap in coverage for the homeowners. Okay, so I'm just looking at, I think that was it for.
So one, I'm sorry, Mimi, it's referred to as business expense policy?
Yeah, so we have a coverage called business expense, extra expense. That would be in a business property policy. That's what we call it, because we don't really have in a business property policy. We don't have the additional living expenses. It's just because it's not really intended for that. But I think that we can find the coverage. Now, I do have to check with the earthquake underwriter, because earthquake is pretty limited.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll check on that one. I think that, let's see. Oh, okay. So now we're getting to now we're going to get to some of the liability questions. Okay, so we can move on from earthquake. Okay. So now we have a separate liability policy. And the limit, I combined the two, the primary and the excess together. So the limit's 11 million per occurrence, or 12 million aggregate. And it's only covering the 200 townhomes, the vacant land, 2 swimming pools, and 2 playgrounds. That's it. And it is designated to just those premises. Okay. Premiums just under 30,000, and it's a deductible of 2,500. And again, I just listed some of the major exclusions. Of course, there's more. So I did get a couple questions on liability. So let's look at those. Sorry, I'm going to find those again. Okay. Question. A person walks up to my home, trips on the top step, falls, and breaks a knee before reaching my front door. Which policy covers it? Homeowner, the group, or homeowners? So again, on the So in the townhomes, it's only covering for the townhomes, you're responsible for just walls in. And I don't think on the townhome, you're responsible for any outdoor landscaping.
No, it's through the maintenance rent.
Okay.
It's referring to as a CAM fee.
Yeah, so if they fall coming right into the front door, I mean, that's kind of, I would say that's probably the homeowners, but I mean, honestly, it could be, what if there's a crack in the step? What if it was slippery? What if there were leaves? I'll just say this, that I think it would be covered under either one of those policies, but without knowing the exact situation, it's hard to say exactly where it would be covered. I think that's my best answer.
That's a good answer.
Okay. Let's see. There was another one down here that was kind of similar. Okay. Someone is in my closed off patio, trips and sustains an injury ensues. Which policy covers it? Group or homeowners? So does that mean, is that someone who has a freestanding house and they have their own patio? Or do
the townhomes there is an exclusive use area that is between, there are enclosed courtyards, stucco masonry and courtyards. And within those are for exclusive use of the owner of the townhome, but it is considered common area. They do maintain the landscaping in that area.
Okay.
We do have irrigation that is part of the common area irrigation that serves that area.
Okay, so interesting. So I was looking through the ground lease, and honestly, I didn't see anything that was specific to how that would be handled. I would think that it would be the homeowner's policy that would respond to that, but I can't say that for sure because there really isn't anything in the ground lease that says it either way. But if it's the homeowners, if they can use that land and that's designated to just them, their patio, I would honestly think that it would be covered under their policy because they're in charge of them, they control the upkeep, the maintenance of what it looks like that day, and the hazards that happen to be out there. So again, I can't say for sure, but that would be my best guess. And I think that was it on the liability questions. Let's see. Yeah, I think that was it. Okay, so I have gone through all of the questions. I don't think I missed any. Is there anything else?
That's all the questions we received for today. We do have attendees. We have 17 participants. I can always ask for, we have we're summarize it pretty quickly. If there's any questions they may have, they have the ability to raise their hand and I can allow them to speak.
Okay, and while they're typing in, I just want to write a couple notes because I want to check on the earthquake, the additional living expenses, if their own particular unit isn't destroyed and they don't have insurance.
Okay, we'll circle back on those questions.
Okay.
I do have 2 raised hands. I'm going to allow Tom Bocart to speak.
Hi, Rosa.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm fine. I actually have several questions. I'm not sure how to do this. Do you want me to just kind of walk through them or do one and let?
Let's do one at a time and maybe we can respond to your questions, Tom.
So this might be directed at you, Rosa. So what I heard was our policies in general is a commercial property policy, not a condo specific style policy. And I wanted to know the logic behind that. And maybe it's too big of a question, but I assume it was that there was some financial advantage in having this commercial property style coverage. Because do you have any sense, Rosa, why we went down this path with that approach?
No, I don't have the back end history. As you know, we've been working with Alliant, personally myself with Alliant for a couple of years, and this question hasn't come up. I don't know if Mimi, do you have any back end history of why it was selected to go with commercial rather than a?
Yeah, you know what? It was kind of before my time too, but what I would say is my thought on that is because the terms of this policy are so broad and they match the terms of the CSU, and that might have been a consideration. That's
Okay.
yeah. I don't.
Sounds like it's not something either of you two have
No.
a clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll kind of set that aside. I think I heard that, Mimi, you said that active God events are not covered.
They're not excluded. We don't have an act of God exclusion.
Oh, they're not excluded. Okay.
Yeah.
So hail, wind, hurricane. Okay, we're all good. Okay,
Yep.
I heard it wrong. Thank you.
Yep, you got it all.
I also heard that the policy we have for attached homes is one in which you've created a fictitious campus called Campus 99. Is that what we did?
Yeah.
Right, okay. And I heard it covers just the 200 townhomes, but I also heard we have a policy that covers the common areas. So are the common areas part of the Campus 99 definition? We've got some bridges, roads, and all that stuff.
So what I would say is on the Campus 99, we're only listing the 200 units.
Okay.
We can certainly cover more, but that's all we have on there now. And so those bridges and sidewalks, that might be the responsibility of a different entity, and that I don't know of who's responsible for ensuring it.
Yeah, Rosa, do you have any idea?
Yeah, we'll have to coordinate with Mimi in regards to, are those, this what we call the city is this as the university, is that under their policy, and we'll have to align those together.
Okay, got two more questions. Thank you for your patience. Actually, there's three. So I heard slabs are not covered. That was kind of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Aha. So if we have an earthquake, this is just an example, and the slab is kind of messed up, it splits in half or something, the tension bar, it was so severe that, the slab cracked. And so, and I also heard we have $170,000 deductible for each townhome. Now, if the deductible doesn't include the slab, and my slab is cracked, I mean, that's basically I'm on the hook for the whole townhome. But when you throw those
Yeah.
costs together, I mean, that's a lot of money. I can rebuild my townhome for certainly less than 300,000. So I just want to know if I heard that right.
Well, yeah, let me just say, so what it is, my example was, it's 5% of the value of each group of buildings. So so if the town, if your structure has 6 townhomes in it,
Okay.
or it has 15, it's 5% of that value.
Okay, all right, that's a little different. I
That's
did
a little
hear
bit
that
better.
right. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So, all right, so Jake, we've clearly had some slab problems, so, and I think they've been coming out of reserves, but I thought I also heard we were throwing insurance in there somewhere, but apparently not.
The slab issues, we haven't had structural issues with the slab. We've had issues with the slab leaks, which is plumbing that was run underneath the slab that either becomes corroded or worn with time, and the water comes through the slab, intruding into the space. And at that point, because it's intruding from the outside, my understanding was that at that point is where it becomes the responsibility of the insurance policy, and we put in a claim to this 200 unit townhome policy. It's just with the townhomes, yes.
Okay, so if the pipe breaks and comes through the slab, that's covered.
Correct. If there is water intruded into, if it is flooded, basically. And
Right.
that would be, my understanding is that is something, because it is a specific event that can be traced to a specific repair that needs to be made, as opposed to it doesn't include ants kind of thing. It is an event that can be pinpointed basically at a certain time.
Okay. So, sorry for all these questions. So I heard that we have liability coverage for the Kennedy Wilson owned pools and tot lots and so forth. Is that right?
Yes.
But I've also heard from Kennedy Wilson in some emails some time ago that they corporate wise have their own policy. So are we double covered there?
Yes, you are. And we did that on purpose, actually. So the premium to cover those is so low, and because the liability policy is very specific about what it covers, it's not it's designated to just those premises. We didn't want you to not have coverage as somehow you were brought into litigation that had to do with the pool or the playground. Even though technically it's someone else's responsibility, we wanted to be able to make sure that you had some coverage should you be pulled in, even if it's just defense to get you out of the litigation.
And just to clarify, Tom, that's an expense of the site authority. It doesn't go through the property policy through the townhouses or the single family houses.
You're saying that's not charged to?
No, it's not charged to the townhouses or the residents. It's a site authority expense.
Okay. Now, final question, that so the Campus 99 policy, Mimi, that was your underwriters computed a specific premium for Campus 99. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And Rosa, that's what's being charged to the townhome owners.
Yes, specifically for the property insurance. Yes.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry for taking up a block of time there.
Thank you, Tom.
No questions.
Okay, let's see. I have Simhan.
Unmute yourself, Simhan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Good evening. Thank you for doing this. It's a very informative session. And I had a lot of questions, and I think some of them have been answered, but there are a couple of them which I need a little clarification. One of the comment you made was about defining the CAM area. So if, for example, in some townhomes where the patio, the courtyard integrates with the door, and there's a common area where there's a sprinkler system, that is basically maintained by the site authority because sprinkler system is not insured. Now, if there is a liability issue, why is it covered by under the homeowners? Because it's not homeowners property. It's not covered. It's not a CAM area. It's not a homeowners CAM area.
My
Yeah.
understanding is that the ground sublease Simhan mentions that the courtyards are for the exclusive use of the owner.
Correct.
And so at that point is where my understanding is that it becomes up to the owner.
But
Regarding the infrastructure with the irrigation, that is a gray area. I don't know the answer.
yes, that's what I'm talking about. The gray area is between the main doorway and the courtyard. There is a small area in some of the homes, townhomes, which has an irrigation system. And we don't maintain that. That is maintained by the CAM site authority and landscaping crew.
And I know in the courtyards that is something that some townhome owners choose to cap off. And so it's like there is some jurisdiction in that if they don't want to have the irrigation coverage in their courtyard, they can cap it off. So that's kind of an advantage of having it exclusive use. So
in liability kind of situation, what happens at that time? If there is a liability, somebody slips in that area, because as I understand, the CAM area starts from the arch of the doorway in some of the townhomes, say Montreal model number 3. The archway where it ends, that's where the homeowner's property, that's where the CAM area begins, all the way to the steps, to the walkway. That is CAM area. So if the slip happens on the steps, that means it is happening in the CAM area, not the responsibility of the homeowner. So why should the homeowner be liable for that?
I don't think we know until a loss occurs. I think it's really, I think what would really happen is both insurance companies would do their investigation and figure out who's responsible.
As we were told when we bought these homes, the CAM area is well defined. The CAM area starts at the archway where it ends. And from that point on, the CAM area begins all the way till the walkway from the stairway. Because the stairway is maintained by the CAM and site authority.
That's correct. And I guess what Mimi Long is mentioning, Simhan, is that it depends on the circumstances of there's some homeowner ownership and responsibility. But if it was a maintenance item that was in default by the site authority UG CAM, then the insurance would look at those circumstances and make a claim. They would both have to investigate and figure out who would be responsible.
I think it's important that the site authority and the UG CAM Canada really defines this CAM area clearly, because there is a misunderstanding of what is CAM area and what is not CAM area.
I think the other thing that's also true, Simhan, is that the as a townhouse owner, I can speak for myself as well, are paying for the insurance policy, as part of our monthly fees. And so in that sense, we're part of the common area as well.
Correct. But from a liability perspective, I'm talking about the liability side of things.
And from a liability standpoint, we would go to our insurance coverages, which we pay both from the common area, for the larger common area as well as for the townhouses.
Townhomes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes with the investigation approach. basically. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sinhan. And I have one more question. I have a few hands up. Let's see, Chris Williamson.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry. I got a new computer last weekend and I'm still learning. I just have one question, and that is, and this has come up before, Jake, and maybe there's a good answer. And that is, personal liability of HAC elected members that are in the sublease and or any community volunteers who participate in some kind of an event. If some rambunctious attorney sues everybody, CSU, the site authority, God, and everybody who was there and so forth, how do individuals get off the lawsuit without spending their own money? Is there a duty to defend or anything like that in these policies?
That's a great question, Mimi. I know we had a brief discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to keep it out there, that's all.
So, in life, that could happen with anything. So I think in your situation, you've got the advisory committee. You're not making final decisions, right? So all the decisions are made by another body. I don't know if it's the site authority board or who makes the final decisions, but it's not the advisory committee. So in life, anyone can sue you for anything. And so again, that would just be, that would not be the site authority defending you. That really would have to be kind of on your own. But I don't see that there's any liability because you haven't taken any action. You've only given your opinion. You've advised. So
and we all understand that. There's just the cost of getting removed from a lawsuit that would have to be borne by an individual, apparently.
well, yeah, it would.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it could kind of happen to any of us,
Sure,
unfortunately.
sure. Yeah.
But,
Okay. Why I brought it up, and others have also, is that in an HOA policy, because I'm familiar with homeowner association, there's a duty to defend clause sometimes where they spend the money to defend you because you are an elected HOA member or whatever. And, that's in that kind of a policy. So it sounds like none of these policies that you represent have that kind of coverage for residents.
that's right. We do place a directors and officers liability policy for the site authority, but because the advisory committee isn't taking final action, they're only advising. There isn't a separate policy for that group.
Okay, we just want to know, and I think that answers the question for the time being. That answers the question. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And I have one more question for you, Tina.
Hi, it's Tina. Thank you, Mimi, for being here, and Rosa and Jake for organizing this. It's a little overwhelming, but really appreciate the information. So I just have a question moving forward. Do you have a time estimate when you might have the answers to the two pieces? I think there were two pieces that you were going to look into. And then my second part of that question is, how will we then get that information?
Well, I hope that I can have an answer, within a couple days, and I will send it to Rosa.
Yes, and Tina, with this kind of new forum, Jake and I will develop some Q&A and we'll post it on the website, University Glen. So there are common questions, and we can refer always to updating a Q&A available for the residents.
Great, thank you.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. And that sums up all the questions. Again, we appreciate your time. Mimi, it was a long time of requesting this meeting, and I know we had put it off for many reasons, but I think it serves a great purpose of, responding to the questions that were coming to UGCAM and having this available for the residents. And we really appreciate your time.
Sure. No
Did you have any questions for us?
No, I don't.
In this forum? Of course
Yeah.
not. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Have a nice evening.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.